Han wiped the sweat from his forehead as he checked the scanner one more time. The small screen on his control panel beeped steadily. Something big was out there, floating among the asteroids. Something worth money. "Come on, old girl," he said, patting the worn dashboard of his ship, the Songbird asterisk. The ship wasn't much to look at, just a small salvage vessel with patches on its hull and engines that needed fixing. But it was home. Han had been a salvager for 12 years now. He flew alone through the outer edges of human space, looking for old ships and valuable parts, while other salvagers chased after military wrecks or rich people's broken ships. Han liked the old colony ships. These were the big vessels that had carried people from Earth to new worlds many years ago. His grandmother used to tell him stories about their family coming from Korea on Earth to the stars. She would trace the strange mark on his right shoulder, a pattern of lines that looked a bit like a star, and tell him it meant he was special. Han would laugh. He didn't feel special living in the poor section of Colony 9. The scanner beeped louder. Han leaned forward, his dark eyes fixed on the readout. The object was massive, at least 3 times the size of any colony ship he'd ever seen. "That can't be right," he muttered, tapping the screen. But the reading stayed the same. Han turned the Songbird asterisk toward the signal, moving carefully through the asteroid field. His ship was small enough to dodge the floating rocks, but one bad hit could end everything. After 20 minutes of careful flying, he saw it. "Stars above," he whispered. The ship was enormous. It floated silently among the asteroids, its dark hull reflecting the distant sunlight. It didn't look damaged, just old. Very old. Han checked his database, but found nothing matching this design. The ship had strange markings along its side in a language he couldn't read, yet something about it seemed familiar. Han's heart beat faster. An unknown ship this size would make him rich. If the engines still worked, or if there was valuable tech inside, he could finally buy a new ship, and maybe even some land on a good planet. He guided the Songbird asterisk alongside the giant vessel, looking for a place to dock. The hull seemed intact, which meant there might still be air inside. Han found what looked like a docking port and carefully lined up his ship. With a soft clunk and hiss, the ships connected. Han pulled on his salvage suit, not a full spacesuit, but enough to protect him if the air inside was bad. He grabbed his tool bag, scanner, and light. After checking that his emergency beacon was working, he opened the airlock. The air that greeted him was thin but breathable. Han took off his helmet and sniffed. It smelled old and stale, but not dangerous. His scanner showed no toxins, no radiation, and most importantly, no other people. "Hello," he called out anyway, his voice echoing down the dark hallway beyond the airlock. No answer came back. Han stepped forward, the light on his shoulder cutting through the darkness. The corridors were wide and tall, bigger than any ship he'd seen before. The walls were made of a dark metal that his scanner couldn't identify. As he walked deeper into the ship, Han felt a strange feeling. The ship seemed empty, but not abandoned. It felt more like it was waiting. Waiting for what? He asked the empty hallway. His voice echoed back to him. "For you," the echo seemed to say. Han shook his head. He was being silly. This was just an old ship, probably from the early days of space travel. With its size, there must be valuable things inside. He just needed to find the control room or the captain's quarters. Those would have the most valuable items. He didn't know that in those quiet, waiting rooms, his entire life was about to change. And it would all start with a letter. Han moved deeper into the giant ship, his light showing the way. The hallways were wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. The walls were smooth and made of a dark metal that seemed to swallow the light. "This isn't normal," Han said to himself. Most old ships were built small to save money. This ship was built like a palace. Han checked his scanner again. The air was still safe, and there was a faint power source somewhere ahead. As he walked, Han noticed small lights beginning to turn on along the floor. They were dim, but they formed a path. It was as if the ship knew he was there. "Hello," he called again. His voice bounced off the walls. No one answered, but more lights turned on. Han followed the lights. They led him to a large door with strange symbols carved into it. He ran his fingers over the symbols. They looked a bit like the old Korean letters his grandmother had taught him, but different somehow. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Han stepped back, his hand reaching for the small gun he kept for protection. But nothing came out. He waited for a minute, then carefully stepped through the doorway. He found himself in what must have been the ship's control room. Tall windows looked out into space, showing the distant stars and the asteroids floating nearby. Rows of control panels filled the room, all dark except for one in the center that glowed with a soft blue light. Han walked to the glowing panel and looked at the screen. Strange symbols flashed across it, then changed to words he could read. "Welcome," it said. Han jumped back. "What are you?" he asked. "Ship AI systems partially active," the screen showed. "Power at 12%. Running basic functions only." Han had seen ship AIs before, but nothing this advanced. Even new ships needed people to press buttons and give voice commands. This ship seemed to be responding to his presence alone. "Can you tell me what kind of ship this is?" Han asked. The screen flickered. "This vessel is the Royal Flagship * Eternal Dawn *. Royal? Han had never heard of any royal ships in human space. There were no kings or queens among the stars, just colony governors and company bosses. "How old is this ship?" Han asked. "Ship age, 1,247 standard years." Han's mouth fell open. That was impossible. Humans had only been in space for about 500 years according to all the history books. The first colony ships left Earth less than 300 years ago. "That can't be right," Han said. The screen flickered again. "Error in date conversion possible. Running diagnostics." While the AI worked, Han looked around the control room more carefully. Most of the technology looked nothing like what he knew. It was both more advanced and somehow older at the same time. In the center of the room was what looked like a captain's chair. It was large and made of the same dark metal as the walls, but covered with a material that felt like leather but wasn't. In front of the chair was a small table with a box on it. Han walked to the box and opened it. Inside was a sealed envelope made of a strange paper-like material. On the front of the envelope was a symbol, the exact same pattern as the birthmark on Han's shoulder. His heart began to beat faster. How could this old ship have his mark on an envelope? Han picked it up. It felt warm in his hands, almost alive. The AI screen flashed red. Genetic match detected. Royal DNA confirmed. All around Han, the ship began to wake up. More lights turned on. Control panels lit up. The air circulators began to work better, bringing fresher air. "What's happening?" Han asked, still holding the envelope. "The hair has returned," the AI answered. "Beginning restoration protocols." Han looked at the envelope in his hands. Something told him that opening it would change everything. But there was no going back now. The ship had recognized him for some reason, and he needed to know why. With careful fingers, he broke the seal on the envelope and pulled out the letter inside. Han's hands shook as he held the letter. As soon as he touched the paper, it began to glow with a soft blue light. Words appeared on the page, not written with ink, but forming from the paper itself. The words were in Korean, his family's old language. "To the last heir of the House of Jin," it began. "Rightful sovereign of the Stellar Kingdom." Han almost dropped the letter. This had to be a mistake or a joke. He was just Han, a simple salvager from Colony 9. His family name was Jin, but that was common enough. "Continue to the royal quarters for full succession protocol," the letter said at the end. The ship's AI spoke again, its voice now coming from speakers around the room instead of text on a screen. "Shall I guide you to the royal quarters?" Your Highness. Don't call me that, Han said quickly. And yes, show me the way. More lights came on along the floor, making a path out of the control room and down a new hallway. Han followed, still holding the glowing letter. The path led to an elevator that took him deep into the ship's center. When the doors opened, Han gasped. He stood at the entrance to a huge room that looked like something from an old Earth movie about kings and castles. There was a large bed, tables, chairs, and even a fountain in the middle with water that somehow still flowed after all these years. The royal quarters of King Nin Jin IV, last crowned ruler of the Stellar Kingdom, the AI said. Han walked slowly into the room. Everything was covered in a thin layer of dust, but otherwise looked new. On one wall hung a large painting of a man wearing what looked like a crown made of metal and glowing stones. The man in the painting had Han's same eyes and the same mark on his shoulder. "This is crazy," Han whispered. "There's no such thing as space kings." The history of the Stellar Kingdom was erased after the Great Rebellion, the AI said. All colony ships were programmed to remove this knowledge from their databases. All humans were made to believe they originated on Earth. Han sat down on a chair, sending up a small cloud of dust. "What are you saying?" "That humans didn't come from Earth. Earth was the 17th colony world, established 3,000 years ago," the AI replied. "The original human homeworld was destroyed in the First War against the Void Ones." None of this matched anything Han had learned in school. Everyone knew humans came from Earth and had only reached the stars in the last few hundred years. A small robot rolled out from a hidden door in the wall. It was the size of Han's head and moved on 6 small wheels. It carried a metal box to Han and opened it. Inside was a simple crown made of the same dark metal as the ship. In the center was a clear crystal that seemed to have stars floating inside it. "The crown of stars," the AI said. "It will only activate for one with the royal blood and mark." Han didn't touch it. This was too much, too fast. He stood up and walked around the room, trying to make sense of everything. On a desk near the back wall, he found more papers and what looked like a book. He opened it and found pictures, actual printed photos of planets and cities he had never seen. They looked like human cities but were far grander than any colony he knew. "The Royal Archive," the AI said. "It contains the true history of humankind among the stars." As Han flipped through the book, a small alarm sounded from the device on his wrist. It was his ship's alarm. Something was approaching. Han ran to a window in the royal quarters that looked out into space. 3 ships were moving toward the Eternal Dawn asterisk. They were sleek and fast, nothing like the bulky ships Han was used to seeing. Their design reminded him of the royal flagship itself. 3 Guardian vessels approaching, the AI announced. "They have detected the royal awakening." "Guardians?" Han asked. "Who are they?" "Those who have waited for the heir's return," the AI said. "The keepers of the old ways." The largest of the 3 ships moved alongside the Eternal Dawn asterisk and began docking procedures. Han's simple salvage job had just become something much bigger and much more dangerous. Han stood by the window, watching as the largest of the 3 ships connected to the Eternal Dawn asterisk. His heart beat fast in his chest. Should he run back to his ship and try to escape? Or should he wait and see who these guardians were? Before he could decide, the AI spoke again. "The Guardian Commander requests permission to enter the royal quarters." Han took a deep breath. "Let them in," he said. He looked around for something to use as a weapon, just in case. He grabbed a long metal rod that looked like it might have been part of a flag stand. The door to the royal quarters slid open. A woman walked in first, followed by 2 men. All 3 wore dark blue uniforms with a symbol on their chest, the same symbol as Han's birthmark, and the one on the letter. The woman stepped forward and did something Han had never seen before. She bent one knee and lowered her head. "Your Highness," she said in a clear voice, "I am Commander Ju of the Guardian Fleet. We have waited many generations for this day. Han held the metal rod tightly. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a salvager. My name is Han Jin. The woman, Ju, stood up and smiled. Yes, Han of the House of Jin, the last royal bloodline. She pulled back the sleeve of her uniform to show a mark on her wrist. It wasn't the same as Han's, but it was similar. All those who served the royal family were marked, she explained. My ancestors were the king's guard. We protected the royal family during the rebellion. When the last king fell, we took his infant son, your ancestor, and hid him on Colony World 3, which you now call Earth. Han lowered the metal rod. Something about Ju's words felt true, matching the strange dreams he sometimes had of planets he'd never seen. The letter said, I'm the rightful sovereign of the Stellar Kingdom, Han said. But there is no kingdom, just colonies and trade companies. Ju nodded. The kingdom was broken after the rebellion. The rebels didn't want to destroy humanity, just the royal family. They let people live, but they erased our true history. They made everyone believe we started on Earth and only recently reached the stars. But why? Han asked. Why lie about where we came from? Power, said one of the men behind Ju. The rebel leaders became the first trade companies. They control everything now. Han walked to the desk and picked up the book he had found. This shows cities I've never seen, bigger than anything on any colony. Those were the great cities of the core worlds, Ju said. Planets that humans settled thousands of years ago. They still exist, but most are controlled by the consortium now. The consortium? Han asked. The group that formed from the old rebel leaders, Ju explained. They rule most human worlds through trade deals and debt. They keep technology limited. They keep worlds separate and fighting each other. They don't want unity. Han looked at the crown in the box the small robot had brought. And you think I can change that because of my bloodline? Ju nodded. The old king built failsafes into human culture and technology. There are systems across all worlds that will only respond to royal command. If you claim your birthright, you could unite humanity again. Han laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I'm just a salvager. I don't know how to rule anything. You don't have to rule as kings once did, Ju said, but you must stand against the consortium. Already they know the royal flagship has awakened. They will come to destroy it. And you. As if to prove her words, a loud alarm sounded throughout the ship. Multiple ships approaching, the AI announced. Weapons signatures detected. Han looked at Ju. Who is it? The consortium security fleet, she replied, her face grim. They're here to make sure the heir never claims the throne. We need to move now, Ju said, her voice firm but calm. She touched a small device on her wrist. Prepare for emergency jump. Han looked out the window. 5 large black ships were moving toward them. They were built for fighting, with big guns on their sides. Wait, Han said. My ship is still docked here. The asterisk Songbird asterisk. I can't leave it. Ju nodded to one of her men. Park, bring his ship into our main bay. The man called Park bowed slightly and left the room quickly. How can he move my ship? Han asked. Guardian ships have tractor beams, Ju explained. Technology the consortium keeps for themselves and their security forces. The AI's voice came through the speakers again. Incoming message from consortium security fleet. Let us hear it, Ju said. A man's voice filled the room. It was cold and hard. This is Director Song of the consortium security. The ship you are on is consortium property. Leave immediately or be destroyed with it. Ju looked at Han. They're lying. The royal flagship could never be their property. It responds only to royal blood. Han stepped forward. This is Han Jin. I found this ship first. Salvage rights are mine by colonial law. There was a pause before Director Song spoke again. His voice was different now, less sure. Han Jin. From Colony 9. Yes, Han said. How do you know that? All potential royal bloodlines are washed, Song said. We've been monitoring your family for generations. You should have stayed a simple salvager, Jin. Now you'll die a pretend king. The connection cut off. The ship shook as something hit it. They're firing on us, Ju shouted. The old shields won't hold for long. Han felt angry. The consortium had been watching his family. All the years of struggling on Colony 9. The hard work, the hunger, they had been watching and keeping his family down. What can we do? He asked Ju. The royal flagship has weapons, but they need royal activation, she said. You need to sit in the command chair and accept your role. At least for now. Han looked at the crown in its box. He still didn't believe he was meant to be a king, but he also didn't want to die here. Fine, he said. Show me what to do. Ju led Han back to the control room quickly. The ship shook again as more shots hit it. Shields at 42%, the AI reported. In the center of the control room, the captain's chair, the throne, waited. Han sat down. The chair adjusted to fit him perfectly. Ju handed him the crown. You must put it on. It will connect you to the ship's systems. Han took a deep breath and placed the crown on his head. At first, nothing happened. Then the crystal in the center began to glow. Han felt a strange sensation, like the ship was becoming part of him. He could feel the damage to the shields, sense the weapons waiting to be used. I can feel the ship, he whispered. Command it, Ju urged. The words will come to you. Han closed his eyes. Somehow he knew what to say. Royal Flagship * Eternal Dawn *. I, Han of House Jin, command your defense systems to activate. The ship hummed with new energy. Panels lit up all around the control room. Defense systems online, the AI said. Weapons charging. Outside, parts of the ship's hull moved aside, revealing weapon ports that had been hidden for centuries. Your ship is secure in our bay, Park reported as he returned to the control room. Good, Ju said. We need to jump away from here. There are too many consortium ships. Jump, Han asked. Jump where? To the hidden colony, Ju said, where the last loyal subjects of the kingdom have waited for your return. Han could feel the ship's jump engines through the crown's connection. They were old but powerful. Consortium ships are surrounding us, the AI warned. Jump path blocked. Han gripped the arms of the throne. Then we'll need to fight our way out first. He had never been in a space battle before. He had never worn a crown before. And he had certainly never given orders to fire weapons before. But today was full of firsts for the last heir of House Jin. The space around the * Eternal Dawn * lit up with weapons fire. The consortium ships moved in a tight circle, trying to box them in. Target their engines, Ju suggested to Han. Han nodded. He didn't know how to fight a space battle, but through the crown, the ship seemed to understand his thoughts. He focused on the nearest consortium ship's engines. The ancient weapons of the royal flagship fired. Beams of bright blue light shot out from the * Eternal Dawn *. When they hit the consortium ship, they didn't explode like normal weapons. Instead, the enemy ship's engines simply stopped working. What kind of weapons are these? Han asked. Royal technology, Ju explained. They shut down systems instead of destroying them. The old kings didn't like to kill when they didn't have to. Han targeted 3 more ships. Their engines went dark too. The last consortium ship tried to run, but Han disabled it as well. Jump path clear, the AI announced. Make the jump, Ju said. Han felt the ship's jump engines power up. Stars outside the windows stretched into lines, and then they were moving faster than light itself. Where exactly are we going? Han asked, taking off the crown. His head hurt a little. The Mist Nebula, Ju said. The consortium thinks it's just a cloud of gas, but inside is our home, New Seoul. Han knew about the Mist Nebula. It was a big cloud of purple gas that ships avoided because it could damage their sensors. He had never heard of anything living inside it. The jump lasted only 10 minutes. When the ship came out of light speed, they were at the edge of the purple cloud. The nebula has special particles that block consortium scanners, Ju explained, but royal ships can see through it. As they moved into the cloud, Han expected the view to be blocked by purple gas. Instead, the gas seemed to part for them, like a curtain opening. Inside was the most beautiful sight Han had ever seen. A small sun glowed softly in the center of the nebula. Around it were 3 planets, all green and blue with life. Space stations floated between the planets, connected by ships moving back and forth. "Welcome to New Seoul," Ju said, "home of the 20 million loyal subjects of the kingdom." Han stood up from the throne, his mouth open in shock. 20 million. But how? How has no one found this place? "The nebula hides us," Ju said, "and we are careful. We only leave in small groups, and only when necessary." The Eternal Dawn moved toward the largest of the 3 planets. As they got closer, Han could see cities on the surface. Beautiful cities with tall buildings and wide streets filled with trees. "Our people have kept the old ways alive," Ju said. "We've waited for the day when the true heir would return." They landed at a large spaceport outside the biggest city. When the doors opened, Han was surprised to see thousands of people waiting. They cheered when they saw him. "They'd been watching our approach on the screens," Ju explained. "News of the heir's return has spread quickly." An old man with white hair stepped forward from the crowd. He wore a simple blue robe with the same symbol that was on Han's shoulder. "I am Elder Day," he said, bowing deeply. "I have served as keeper of the royal knowledge for 60 years. I never thought I would live to see your return." Han felt uncomfortable with all the attention. "I'm just a salvager," he said quietly to Ju. "I don't know how to be what they want me to be." Ju smiled. "Elder Dai will help you learn. He knows everything about the old kingdom." Elder Dai led Han to a vehicle that floated above the ground. "We must begin your education immediately," he said. "The consortium will be looking for you now, and we don't have much time." As they moved toward the city, Han looked back at the Eternal Dawn. Just yesterday, he had been a simple salvager looking for parts to sell. Now he was being treated like a king. And somewhere out there, Director Song and the consortium were already planning how to find and stop him. The floating car took Han, Ju, and Elder Dai to a tall building in the center of the city. Han looked out the window at the people below. They seemed happy and healthy, very different from the tired, hungry people on Colony 9. "This is the Hall of Knowledge," Elder Dai said as they entered the building. "Here we have kept all the books, records, and technology that the consortium banned." Inside, the walls were lined with real paper books. Han had only seen pictures of such things. In the center of the main room was a round table with a map on it. But this map didn't show just a few colony worlds. It showed hundreds of stars and planets. "The full extent of human space," Elder Day said, pointing to the map. "Over 300 settled worlds, not just the 40 that the consortium tells people about." Han's eyes widened. "That's not possible." "It is true," Ju said. "The consortium keeps worlds separate and unaware of each other. They control all travel and all information." A young woman ran into the room. "Commander Ju," she said, breathing hard. "Urgent news from our spies in the consortium." Ju took the small device from the woman and watched a video on it. Her face grew dark with worry. "Director Song has called a full meeting of the consortium leaders," she said. "He's told them that a false king has appeared. They're gathering their entire fleet." Han sat down in a chair. "How big is their fleet?" 500 ships, Ju said. "Maybe more." "And how many do we have?" 30 that can fight, Ju replied. "Plus the Eternal Dawn asterisk." Han shook his head. "That's not a fight we can win." Elder Dai placed a hand on Han's shoulder. "Numbers aren't everything. The royal technology is far stronger than theirs. And there's something else." He led Han to another room. Inside was a large machine with a chair in the center. "This is a royal beacon," Elder Day explained. "It can send a message to every human in settled space at the same time. The consortium doesn't know it exists. If you tell people the truth about their history, many will stand with you." Han looked at the machine. "Will they believe me?" "Nobody." "You are the heir," Elder Day said. "The crown will prove it. And there's a test that will show your blood is royal." "A test?" Elder Day nodded. "We must do it now. The consortium is already searching for new soul. We don't have much time." The old man took a small device and pressed it against Han's arm. It took a drop of blood. Elder Day put the blood drop into another machine. A screen lit up, showing Han's DNA. Parts of it glowed blue. "The royal markers," Elder Day said, smiling. "Only those of the royal line have them. This proves you are the true heir." As they watched the screen, an alarm sounded. Ju's communication device beeped. "Consortium scout ships have entered the outer nebula," she reported. "They're using new scanners that can see through the mist." Han looked at the DNA screen, then at Elder Day and Ju. These people had waited generations for him. They believed in him. And the consortium had kept his family poor and struggling while watching them for centuries. "How long will it take for me to learn what I need to know?" he asked Elder Day. "Years, normally," the old man said. "But we have another way." He pointed to a helmet sitting on a table nearby. "The knowledge crown. It can put information directly into your mind. It's painful and dangerous, but it will teach you everything about the kingdom and how to use royal technology in hours instead of years." Han picked up the helmet. It was heavy and looked uncomfortable. "Will it help us fight the consortium?" he asked. Elder Day nodded. "It will teach you things even I don't know." Han took a deep breath. He thought about his simple life as a salvager. That life was gone now. The consortium would never let him go back to it. His only path was forward. "Let's do it," he said, sitting down in a chair. "Teach me how to be a king." Elder Day placed the knowledge crown on Han's head. It felt cold and heavy. "This will hurt," the old man warned. "But you must not take it off until it finishes." Han nodded. "I understand." Elder Day pressed a button on the side of the crown. Suddenly, Han's head filled with bright light and pain. He gripped the chair arms tightly, his knuckles turning white. Images flashed through his mind. Planets, stars, people, battles, all coming too fast to understand. Then things slowed down. Han saw the first human world, a beautiful blue planet called Terra. He saw the massive ships that had carried humans to the stars thousands of years ago. He saw the royal family, his ancestors, leading humanity to new worlds. And he saw the Void Ones, dark shapes that moved between stars, destroying everything they touched. The first great war that had destroyed Terra, the humans fleeing to new worlds. More images came, the building of the kingdom, the peace that lasted for centuries, then the rebellion. Han saw his many times great-grandfather, the last crowned king, dying as he sent his infant son to safety. With the images came knowledge. Han suddenly understood the royal technology, how it used the energy between stars in ways the consortium had forgotten. He learned about the hidden systems on every human world, waiting for royal commands to wake up. After 2 hours, the crown turned off by itself. Han slumped in the chair, exhausted but changed. When he opened his eyes, they glowed slightly blue for a moment before returning to normal. "Did it work?" Ju asked. Han stood up slowly. "Yes. I know what we need to do." He walked with new confidence to a large window overlooking the city. "The asterisk Eternal Dawn asterisk isn't just a ship," he said. "It's a key. It can activate royal technology across all human worlds." Elder Day looked surprised. "I didn't know that." "The last king built it that way," Han said. "If the royal line ever returned, the ship would help them reclaim their place." Ju's communication device beeped again. "Consortium main fleet has been located," she reported. They're heading this way. 4 hours until they reach us. Han turned to them. We need to get back to the Eternal Dawn now. And I need people who can work with the old technology. We have engineers who have studied the old ways, Elder Day said. I'll gather them. An hour later, Han stood in the control room of the Eternal Dawn. 20 engineers from New Seoul worked at stations around him, bringing the ancient ship back to full power. All systems at 94%, one engineer reported. Weapons fully charged. Han sat in the command chair and put on the royal crown. Through it, he could feel the ship coming alive around him. But more than that, he could sense other royal technology scattered across human space, sleeping, waiting. The consortium fleet is approaching the nebula, Ju said. 3 hours until they reach New Seoul. Han closed his eyes. There's something at the heart of the ship, he said. Something called the beacon core. The floor in the center of the control room slid open. A round device rose up, glowing with blue light. What is that? Ju asked. It's how we'll tell everyone the truth, Han said. This can send a message to all humans at once. Not just words, but proof, genetic memories that all humans carry. Han stood and walked to the beacon core. If we activate this, every human will know their true history. They'll know about the consortium's lies. Will that be enough to stop them? Ju asked. No, Han said. But it will wake up the royal technology on every world. The consortium has built their cities on top of the old royal ones. They don't even know what lies beneath them. One of the engineers looked up from her screen. Consortium Advance Fleet has entered the nebula. They've found us. Han placed his hands on the beacon core. It glowed brighter at his touch. Get us into space, he ordered. We need to be ready when they come. As the Eternal Dawn rose from the spaceport, Han felt the weight of his new role. He was no longer just a salvager. He was the last heir. The one who would either restore humanity's true path or fail and watch the last free humans die. The Eternal Dawn rose into space, followed by 30 Guardian ships. They formed a protective circle around the royal flagship. Through the viewing window, Han could see the purple mist of the nebula. Beyond it, small points of light grew larger. The consortium fleet was coming. They have over 500 ships, Ju said, standing beside Han. Even with royal technology, we can't fight them all. Han nodded. We don't need to fight them all. We just need to hold them off until the beacon activates. He sat in the command chair, the royal crown on his head. The engineers worked quickly at their stations, preparing the beacon core. First consortium ships entering visual range, an engineer reported. On the main screen, Han could see them, black warships with the consortium symbol on their sides. At the front was a larger ship with gold markings. That's Director Song's command ship, Ju said. The communication system beeped. They're hailing us, an engineer said. Han nodded. Let's hear them. Director Song's face appeared on the screen. He was an older man with cold eyes. Han Jin, he said, this foolish game has gone on long enough. Surrender now, and we may let the people of New Seoul live. Han stood up, facing the screen. You've lied to humanity for centuries, he said. You've kept us divided and weak. That ends today. Song laughed. You and what army? We outnumber you 15-1. I don't need an army, Han said. I have the truth. He signaled for the communication to be cut. Is the beacon ready? He asked the chief engineer. Yes, Your Highness, she replied. But it will take 10 minutes to fully activate. We need to be at the center of the nebula for maximum range. Then that's where we'll go, Han said. All ships moved to the center point. The small fleet began moving deeper into the nebula. The consortium ships followed. They're powering weapons, Ju warned. Shields up, Han ordered. Return fire only if directly hit. We need to save power for the beacon. The first shots from the consortium ships flashed through space. Most missed, but some hit the Guardian ships. Two smaller ships exploded. Han felt anger rising in him. Target their weapons only, he ordered. Disable, don't destroy. The Eternal Dawn's weapons fired. Precise beams of blue energy that hit the consortium ship's weapon systems. Ship after ship lost its ability to fire, but there were too many. More Guardian ships were hit. The Eternal Dawn shook as blasts struck its shields. Shields at 60%. An engineer called out, 5 minutes to center point. Han looked at the beacon core. It was glowing brighter, almost ready. We need more time, he said. Just then, Director Song's ship fired a special weapon, a bright red beam that cut through the shields of 3 Guardian ships, destroying them instantly. That's a forbidden weapon, Ju said, her voice tight with anger. It destroys the core of living ships. Han made a decision. All Guardian ships, fall back to New Seoul, he ordered. Protect the people there. We won't leave you, Ju protested. That's an order, Han said firmly. The Eternal Dawn can take more damage than your ships. We'll activate the beacon. Reluctantly, Ju nodded. The Guardian ships turned back toward New Seoul, drawing some of the consortium ships with them. Director Song's ship and 200 others stayed on the Eternal Dawn's tail. 2 minutes to center point, the chief engineer reported. Shields at 30%. Han closed his eyes, connecting deeply with the ship through the crown. He could feel every part of it, every system. Divert all power to shields and the beacon, he ordered. Weapons offline. The ship shuddered as more hits landed. Shields at 15%. The engineer called. 1 minute to center point. Director Song's face appeared on the screen again. Your ship is failing, he said. Surrender now. Han stood tall. Humanity deserves the truth, he said. And today they will have it. Center point reached. The engineer announced. Beacon ready. Han placed his hands on the beacon core. Activate, he said. The core erupted with blue light that spread throughout the ship. The light shot out in all directions, passing through the ships, through the nebula, into open space. Across all human worlds, people stopped what they were doing. The blue light touched them all. And in that moment, they remembered the true history of humanity, the kingdom that had united them, the lies that had divided them. On the consortium ships, confused crew members looked at each other. Some put down their weapons. Others turned to their commanders with questions. Director Song's face on the screen showed fear for the first time. What have you done? He demanded. Han smiled. I've reminded humanity who we really are, he said. The rest is up to them. And across human space, the sleeping royal technology began to wake up.